I haven't really touched on critical race theory in roughly a month now. And the reason why I put this series on hold was because the material that we had read together on Wikipedia was so dense, and I felt that I needed some time to process it. Over the weekend, I've seen two debates involving critical race theory, and I think that these debates brought a lot of things to the forefront of my mind. These are things that I've had on my mind for a while, but I think these are two good opportunities to discuss these things. So the first debate, and I'm going to link to them below. The first debate was a panel on the pro CRT side. There was Sam Hoadley Brill and Aaron Rabinowitz, and on the anti CRT side, there was Christopher Watson, Gothix, whose channel it was hosted on, and Karlin Borisenko, who honestly contributed nothing to the conversation. I really don't want to elaborate, but if you were to watch that debate in particular, I would suggest starting it after she leaves. Yeah, the thing that this reminded me of is how, and this is a shame, but I've probably mentioned this on this channel before, on how the left couldn't persuade their way out of a wet paper bag. And the whole CRT thing really illustrates that. And it was also, it kind of reminded me of, you know, the Gamergate time, where like the anti-SJW crowd was like rising on YouTube, because CRT, or the conversation around it, demonstrates how easy it is for right-wingers to just hijack a narrative. It's really easy for right-wingers to erect straw men of what leftist positions actually are, and then popularize that straw man to heaven and back. Part of that is also dependent on how it is obscenely difficult to get a concise definition of what critical race theory actually is. I mean, there's about an hour of footage of me starting from the damn wiki, and the best that I can say is critical race theory is, it's a framework for legal analysis. It's a framework of legal analysis that tries to integrate race as a dimension of analysis which was ignored mainly, or at least that is what the legal scholars who founded critical race theory thought. Now, if you ask your run-of-the-mill, like a normie or whatever, who's never really dug into it, the first thing that they're going to mention is anti-racist, the anti-racist book, and white fragility. That's like the that's what it is in the main zeitgeist, and it's a real shame. And my view is that's kind of on them. Like a metaphor that I like to think of is, if there's like a basketball court, and whenever you show up to play a game of basketball, your opponents just swat the ball out of your hand and dunk on you. If they do that consistently, that's on you. And it's a shame that there's no quick soundbite definition, or at least not one that I'm aware of. I know that there was one offered on the Wikipedia. Let me just see here. It might have changed since we last checked, but I'm pretty sure, where is it? Yeah, you see, Roy L. Brooks. Is Roy L. Brooks one of the names that yeah, it is. So Roy L. Brooks is one of the head honchos, who defines it as a collection of critical stances against the existing legal order from a race-based point of view. Okay. If you compare that to, you know, Robin DiAngelo or whatever the fuck her name is, it's kind of easy to see how someone could just take it and take the ball and run with it and popularize the term. And something that that really leapt out to me in the debate with on Gothix's channel was that leftists talk about how I keep forgetting her name. Robin DiAngelo, there we go. It's insane to me how often leftists will complain about Robin DiAngelo's book, and yet it's kind of news to most right-wingers when they hear, if they hear that isn't really considered CRT. It's a shame, but I hear leftists complain about it all the time. And in the Gothix debate, one thing that I will give Borisenko, she did a very good job of pinning them into a corner, at least attempting to, by saying, I don't care about some obscure books that no one's ever read. I just want to talk about these two books, the anti-racist and the white fragility books. It attempts to force your opponents to deal with the straw man instead of like what CRT actually is. I thought of another metaphor. For that, though, I will set up a pain stream. The metaphor that I thought of is, drumroll, Christianity. So here's the thing. The tenets and teachings of Christianity started off like, with Jesus. Wait. Forgive me, Lord. There we go. That's Jesus. It began with the teachings of Jesus, talking about love and peace and that kind of thing, right? But then at some point, oh Jesus. Okay, he's literally here. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that at some point, fucking Emperor Constantine takes the teachings of Jesus and creates the Roman Catholic Church, which is, let's just say, a much, like, I don't know how many Christians are in your network, but I would say that I know of Christians who consider like Roman Catholicism to be a corruption of the teachings of Jesus, which is what I'm getting at. So here, the fucking Council of Nicaea basically ends up taking all the attention. So basically, when people later on, hear about Christianity, what their perception of it is like, things like the Pope and fucking gold palaces and whipping yourself when you sin and things like that. This might not necessarily be Constantine himself, but I'm sure that there are many other sects in Christianity that people would consider to be corruptions of the original message. That's the metaphor that I'm trying to get at. And the frustrating part of all this is that in this metaphor, some of the apostles are still alive. Like the founding scholars of critical race theory, most if not all of them are out here, and it's baffling to me how despite Constantine in his council choosing which books are going to be in the Bible and which ones aren't, that we don't hear more from the apostles who are like, hey, we were there. That's not that's not what Jesus would have wanted, you know. It's an unfortunate effect of how fucking god awful lefties are at getting their message out, and it's really sad. The other debate that I saw, which illustrated this same point, was between Riley Grace Rochong and Actual Justice Warrior, and it always comes down to you know, just a clear, concise definition. Like, even me, I would say I'm more familiar with CRT than most people who critique it vocally. And even me, like, just saying, oh, it's a framework for legal analysis. That's not a very satisfying question. But one thing that that I know is that if the whole notion of they're teaching CRT in schools, when you know what it actually is, like, I doubt that high schoolers are learning anything about legal analysis. So at some point, at some point there's like a bastardization that's happening. So whatever the fuck that this CRT that they're teaching in high schools is, it's very difficult for me to believe that this would be true to the original intention, as difficult as it is. So not only do you have right-wingers hijacking the definition and just saying what it is, but you know, they're boiling it down to whatever the fuck they're teaching these high schoolers. And later on you have like Coke having corporate trainings telling people to be less white because that's how they interpret the fucking interpretation of Robin DiAngelo's shit. So it's a shame that online discourse has come to this, but I really wish that someone who knows about this more than I do would just put the focus on coming up with a quick soundbite definition, you know, a framework of legal analysis that puts race is it's still better than most people could find, but it's not quite there. There's one thing that I almost forgot to mention that I am very eager to explore, because if you remember, and yeah, I will switch over to this here. So, if you remember, during my research on CRT, which happened live on stream, there was a brief rabbit hole on critical theory, which is the part where we could find kind of allusions and ties to like the Frankfurt School and neo-Marxism and things like that in actual critical theory. The your Catholicism analogy is highly triggering. I apologize, Darth Shady. I guess I should have warned you. Wink, wink. So yeah, the thing that I want to mention that I almost forgot to is that when we were looking at critical theory, which apparently critical race theory is a deviation from that just adds race. Something that Aaron Rabinowitz was saying is that because the way that the ties between critical theory and Marxism exist right now is they can be used as like a Trojan horse to insert Marxism. But the two things that he mentioned was apparently, and I haven't vetted this for myself, but apparently critical race theory was a reaction against the Marxism. So the scholars, the legal scholars that founded CRT were the reason that they did is because they thought that the critical theorists were too obsessed with class, which actually tracks. I don't know to what extent you're aware of this, but there is a on the left, there's like a tug of war that's happening, especially online, between the intersectionalists and for lack of a better term, class reductionists. So the whole, you know, when early on in this series, when I talked about how when you do an intersectional analysis of a situation, if you ignore class, you can come up with all sorts of crazy conclusions, like that Oprah Winfrey is still oppressed despite being like a multi-billionaire and an institution on her own, but just because she's a black woman, she's still oppressed. That's the kind of crazy shit you can come up with when you ignore class. But there are people on the left which think that you can't put too much emphasis on class either, because the fact that she's a black woman does play into something, which I guess would be true on her rise to power, like when she, you know, slowly but surely became the first black woman everything to do everything she's done. That trip, you know, her gender and her race most definitely must have played a part on this. But now it's, you know, not so much. So yeah, if you weren't aware of the tug of war that exists on the left between people who don't put enough emphasis on class and people who put too much emphasis on class, I would suggest very humbly that maybe you would like to diversify your media portfolio, because this is another one of those things that I've heard that I hear about all the time. And the other thing that Rabinowitz mentioned that I just want to get out there, this in itself isn't a proof of anything, but it's an interesting fact, an interesting tidbit. But apparently, like the accusation that this attempt at social progress is just a veiled conspiracy to inject Marxism or communism into American society actually goes back to abolition. Like apparently there were like slave owners like in the Civil War era who were arguing that abolitionists who wanted to get rid of slavery were just using that as a pretext to you know, inject socialism and Marxism in America. Again, this doesn't prove anything, but this is an interesting fact that I would like to explore. The main takeaway that I would like to impart, if anyone who's actually like well-versed in CRT is seeing this, please like just come up with a quick soundbite. Like I also hate that public discourse has come down to this, but we live in the soundbite age, and if you can't come up with a quick soundbite way to define what critical race theory is, you're fucking gonna get that basketball swatted out of your hands, and then Robin DiAngelo is gonna fucking dunk. Well, Robin DiAngelo, who's kind of on your side, is gonna provide your opposition with like all the fodder that they need to fucking discredit the thing, which I think can have value. However, the research is not done. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please like it. If you have any questions, comments, or observations, please leave them in the comments below. I'm very responsive with my comments. I would love to see you here in the chat. I do these streams every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.